So I believe this talk was advertised as being on the prayer for realization, which is a verse that we in the Karma Kagyu tradition recite 100,000 times as a complete practice of itself, which is called Guru Yoga. Obviously reciting something isn't in itself Guru Yoga, but it's like a prayer that one recites in order to bring together the conditions that would enable you to realise what Guru Yoga means. And of course, you know, yoga means joining, yoking, uniting. So it's becoming one with, if you like, the Guru, which begs the question, what's the Guru? What does that mean? And I wanted to say a few words about that. Khandra Rinpoche recently was in South Wales at Bryn Mawr, which is a Kagyu centre, and she was talking about teacher-student relationship, not because she wanted to, but because she was asked to, and she was finding it difficult, I think, to understand what our problem is in the West with the teacher-student relationship. I mean, it's not that it's an easy subject, but we seem to be able to make it an even more difficult subject than it is already. And but she was enthusiastic to talk about Guru Yoga, and she was making the point that to relate to a guru is to open yourself to the guru and to change. You know, you change. You allow you actually relate to the guru, and I'm leaving it just for you to guess what it might mean. You relate to the guru in a way that opens you up to what there is there to be opened up to, if you like, so that there's an opening up to something which is you're aspiring to, and then that which you're aspiring to is alive from its own side and is actually responding, and it's awakening you to something that's within yourself, like when in any loving relationship there's that the open-heartedness of the one who's loving you awakens in you the love that's your love. It's not their love, it's your love, and it's an opening up from both sides. So if that's not happening, you haven't really started on the path of Guru Yoga, and maybe you're not really involved in a guru-student relationship at all, perhaps. But that sort of sounds like, oh dear, I haven't even begun. It's not so terrible. Most people haven't. So it's and it's understood by the tradition that the last step, the final ultimate goal, would be to realise the true nature of the Guru. So if you feel, well, I can't start because I don't really understand what the Guru means, think, well, if you did, you wouldn't need to start because you'd be there. It's like taking refuge. If you really, really understood what taking refuge meant, taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, then you would have taken refuge in such a way that you wouldn't really need to formally take refuge. So it's all chicken and egg. So I want you to hold fire on what the Guru would be, but to have a kind of sense that in order to follow the path to awakening, we need to have that sense of opening up to the presence in our experience, really, of the living presence of the truth, of awakening, of reality, and that's going to require a movement on our part, an opening on our side. And then, obviously, if this is reality we're talking about, it's totality. And totality means there's nothing outside of it. You can't have totality and then something else surrounding it. If it's totality, it's just totality. And you're integral to totality. You don't become integral, you are integral. And you realise that that's like, you could say that's the ultimate guru, is the ultimate reality of totality, with no inside or outside, no limitation. Any quality that there is there in reality, in the totality. So you could say this is the one reality, but with inverted commas, because if there's only one reality, it kind of suggests there's something that you can actually count it. You know, there's just one. It's like, but it can't be known as one thing, because it is the whole of everything. So that you could say then it's nothing, or it's empty, like zero. But that would mean because it was everything. There was nothing that was not included in it. There's no outside of it. So that might sound a bit dry and intellectual. So I wanted to read to you and talk about a poem written by Trungpa Rinpoche that perhaps leads us into it from a more poetic approach, more sort of inspirational approach. And this is a very special poem because it's by Trungpa Rinpoche, Vijayadhara Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. They call him Vijayadhara. As you know, he's the really very important figure for our lineage. And this idea of lineage is really important. When we did the opening verse of the Milarepa, prayer to Milarepa, talked about the power of his insight filling the whole universe. Like his realisation is the realisation of the totality of everything. So it includes us, it includes everything. And each guru or teacher of the lineage who realises this, realise the same thing. So none of them ever go anywhere. If you like, they all interpenetrate with here and now. They're all accessible here and now. So we can say hello. We can interact because they're there. Perhaps in the way that we talk about meeting someone in the heart. It's a turn of phrase which it's possible to get a real sense of it being very meaningful, even without any sense of having entered a spiritual path of any kind. We kind of understand that kind of talk. Not intellectually, we don't even try to understand it intellectually. So it's the same here. We're talking about, like when we say, someone's in your heart, or you're in someone else's heart. the gurus in your heart, the lineages in your heart, all those realised beings who've realised reality, interpenetrate with you at your deepest point, deepest place in you. So when we talk to someone in our heart, we kind of mean it in a way that's even more intimate than to each other, and yet we don't think we need to actually ask ourselves, well, how can I talk to someone in my heart? We don't ask that kind of question, do we? It just seems to resonate with some kind of meaning. So we began the session this afternoon with that kind of prayer to Milarepa, and in the same way Trungpa Rinpoche begins this his song with a very similar kind of invocation. But the song itself is really interesting because it's called the Silent Song. It's called the Silent Song of Loneliness. And often in Tibetan Buddhism, there's the yogic tradition generally, there's this play that goes on, that things that sound very negative from the point of view of unenlightened beings like ourselves, like loneliness, sounds quite grim. But from the point of view of the yogin, it's something to rejoice at because it has a completely different meaning. And this play is going on throughout the song of, you've got this loneliness of Trungpa Rinpoche. This was when I first met him in the 67, 8 it was, when he was a Tibetan monk, Lama, or dressed as one anyway. And there's another picture here on the back of, that's him at Samyeling. He just, only a few years before, he's escaped from Tibet. And it's only been a few years in England, and now he's in England and Scotland. And things are changing, and it's a strange culture. He's really having to abandon all his reference points, all his preconceived ideas of who and how he's going to teach, and even the language he's using, even the kind of problems that people are having, where they're coming from. He has to completely open himself to these people. And there's this kind of strange sense of being in a very alien place. So on a certain level, there's that sense of the loneliness of that, and an inner silent loneliness of that. But as the poem goes on, the song goes on, and he opens up more, you realise that actually the silence is perhaps the silence of intuition that doesn't need words. So his song is something that's alive in his heart, that he may express in words, but actually the song itself is beyond words. And that the loneliness, which could sound quite desolate, from the yogin's point of view, it's realising the oneness or the wholeness of reality, in which there is no other. So in that sense, it's alone. And to realise that reality of totality, it's not about grabbing more and more and more till you've got all of it. to realise totality, you have to face that loneliness, that there's nothing there to get, that it's actually total loneliness. From that grasping point of view, there isn't anything to hope for, there's no companion, there's nothing. But actually, if you can face that and, if you like, drop all the assumptions, expectations, and experience it, it's the most joyful thing. And in the end of the poem, you get much more that sense of that underlying joy. So the silent song of loneliness. It's very, very nuanced. So the first verse goes, the one, so this is his prayer, the one to whom peace and solitude are known forever, perfectly, you, Milarepa, Longchenpa, the Guru to whom all things are known, the one who shows the single truth. You I remember, I, your son, crying from an alien island. It's interesting that he uses almost like synonymously these two names of these lineage teachers of the lineage. One is Milarepa, which is iconographically represented here, and the other is Longchenpa. And Milarepa is the like you could say, the father of the Kagyu lineage, transmitting Mahamudra. And Longchenpa, in some sense, also is the father of the Nyingma lineage. And transmits there. He systematized and organized and transmitted the teachings of Chogyam. So it's really interesting to see how Trungpa Rinpoche here is just bringing Milarepa and Longchenpa together. You, Milarepa, Longchenpa. Because there is no division in the lineage. Each guru of the lineage has realised the interpenetration of the whole of reality. There's no division between one teacher and another. The interpenetrating reality of the guru. And ultimately you realise that about your own teacher, and you realise that about yourself. You realise that about the whole of reality, which is really what we're praying to, if you like. It's what we're opening our heart to that reality. But there is a need to open out to reality in that way. Those of you who are familiar with the story of Shakyamuni Buddha, when he reached enlightenment, there was almost a feeling like this, a sense of, oh, now who shall I worship? Like, isn't that the essence of life, really, to have that opening out and receiving this kind of sense of intimacy with reality or truth or whatever it is that comes through your looking up to your teachers and your something to worship, we would say, I think, in the old days, although I think these days worship has a very negative connotation. So the Buddha said, what shall I do now? What shall I worship now? And then he said, oh, it has to be the Dharma itself. The Dharma itself, the truth itself, is the aliveness of the lineage. There is no difference. That's what I shall now worship. So, in the same way, we need that sense to there's again that sense of opening out to something, so that something within yourself can open up. So he's expressing that here with Yu Milarepa Longchenpa. These are lineage teachers. They're not his direct teacher, but they're inseparable from his direct teacher. They're inseparable from himself and his own heart. So, you, the Guru, to whom all things are known. Well, there's the giveaway, isn't it? The only way that all things can be known is if you're talking about totality itself, that includes everything. So that knowing is actually the nature of the totality itself. Again, it sounds a bit intellectual, but there's that some sort of principle there that you might get an intuition about. So all things are known, and yet you show the single truth. There's only one truth. There's only one reality. Sometimes you hear talk about two realities, don't you? But there's only one reality. One is real and one seems real but isn't. Or is relatively real, but it's not ultimately real. There's only one reality, which again is bringing us back to this theme of loneliness and silence. It can't be expressed, it can't be known, it's not, there's nothing outside of it. It is, from the point of view of the limited mind, it's kind of lonely. Single truth. You, I remember, you, your son. So he's remembering this. You can think of him there up in Samueling in Scotland with the mists all around. Cold, wet, damp Scottish climate. You would imagine that, he's from Tibet, he's used to the cold, but not damp cold. Oh no, they hate it. It's just dry cold is quite a different thing. So here I am in this alien island. And now I want to tell you a story of my experience of when I was up in Samueling, just beginning to become a Buddhist. And it was Sangha Akshita actually who suggested I go to see Trungpa Rinpoche. So I went up to see him, and I remember Samueling had only been open a year or two. And early in the morning, about 5 or 6 in the morning, standing on the porch, mist all around, of course, and then this duck, I think it must have been a duck, it goes across the sky. It kind of starts, I start by hearing it over, up to the right here, going, quack, 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 maybe getting louder, quack, 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 and then disappearing into the distance, in and out of the mist. And tremendously evocative moment of such a tiny little speck producing such a loud sound that was resonating everywhere into the morning mist, and this mysteriousness of being at this meditation centre, and this mysterious Tibetan lamas around. And as if that wasn't enough, in the evening we were sitting in the shrine room, and the sort of evening was drawing in, it was getting a bit dark, and somebody read this poem, and this line just jumped out at me. The wild duck, companionless, cries out in desolate loneliness, and flies alone, wings outspread, soaring in the boundless sky. And I went, goosebumpy, goosebumpy. Yeah, sort of, oof. But of course I suppose it's not that surprising that Trungpa Rinpoche wrote this poem just, I don't know, I think he'd only just written it. This was in 1969. Ducks do that there. So it's a natural image, but it really struck me, this image of this duck, and as I've been looking at this poem, I've looked at it again and again over the years and wondered what this duck represented, what did it suggest to me. And the more I read it, the more it suggests to me the practitioner, the person who's aspiring to be a yogin. And it's like Trungpa Rinpoche talking to that part of himself and encouraging it. The song ends with him saying, yes, in the sky, dancing, riding the wild duck. So it's kind of... And he's encouraging it throughout the song. So he says, the wild duck, companionless, cries out in desolate loneliness, and flies alone, wings outspread, soaring in the boundless sky. There's again that little twist, isn't it? It sounds like there's this lonely duck, and then soaring in the boundless sky. Suddenly, that seems like a wonderful thing. For the yogin, that's a wonderful thing. Perhaps for us, it looks a bit lonely and a bit bleak. But he's soaring in the boundless sky. And then the next verse is, in the womb, beyond the one and many, yours is the inner loneliness, and yours alone the emptiness, within and everywhere around. So this is a giveaway, isn't it? The womb. I was talking about totality, it contains everything. So he's actually using that image of the womb. It's often used for the Buddha nature, being the womb. Beyond the one and many, that's a real giveaway. It's not... Totality is neither one, nor is it made up of parts. Because totality is the whole that isn't... You can't have parts of totality, it's totality. You can't have more than one, but you can't have one either. You need to kind of really think about that. There's a lot in that. You have to really spend a day or two thinking about what does totality mean, I think, for this to really resonate. But here he goes on to say, yours, and again he's talking to the duck, yours alone, the emptiness, so that to understand emptiness, which is the key doctrine within the Buddhist tradition, describes that reality of totality as empty, because for your grasping mind there's nothing there. You can't grasp it, because as soon as you've grasped it as an object, it's only part of reality. It's part of the totality. It's not the whole of totality. If you're going to understand the whole of reality, of totality, it can't be grasped. So it's like boundless space. It's just like there's no way to get out of it, to get a perspective on it. So it's an inner. It's an inner in the sense it's a spiritual emptiness within and everywhere around. It's like there isn't anywhere that isn't that. So that's like the boundless sky is the whole of reality. So that's boundless. That boundlessness is not just kind of space, it's totality. It's everything. The true nature of everything. And then he changes the image, and I've spent many years wondering what this was about, but I'll tell you my latest sort of way of thinking about it. The mountainside alone, the mountainside alone creates the clouds that change the rain, the two, that never go beyond the one. So soar away, wild duck, alone. So the mountainside creates the rain. So I don't know if this is a current idea in Tibet at that time, but certainly this idea that the rain arises from the air rising over the mountain, produces the rain. So the mountain is just there, and then there's something else happens that then creates the rain. So that image, it seems like there's two things happening, but actually that what appears to be two things, he's saying they never go beyond the one. There's something that's happening within the totality. It's not that there's two things, but it looks or seems like there's two. The way there's a mountain, and then something, some movement of the wind, and then creates something out of nowhere, nothing. And then it's very profound, actually. It just leaves you with just these images. The next verse goes, thunder resounding everywhere is only the elements at play. The four expressing the sound of silence. The hailstones triangular, the black clouds and the storm's blast are earthbound only, wild duck. So do not fall a prey to doubt, but get you gone upon your flight. You have to remember, I mean, he hadn't been in England very long and he's writing this poem in English. It's amazing, isn't it? I should say Britain, because he was actually in Scotland. So again, this sense of this boundless space, and then thunder resounding everywhere. It's like that sound has this strange quality of being everywhere at once, doesn't it? Like that wild duck, you could see it, that tiny duck, and yet the sound was everywhere. It's kind of like that creativity within the space is all pervading. So that thunder is of what's manifesting in the space is only the elements at play. That's earth, fire, water, wind. So the four expressing the sound of silence. So usually it's 5 elements, which would include space as well, but we've got the space. So within the space you've got the play of earth, fire, air and water. So I thought, what would the earth be then? But of course then the next line is the hailstones triangular. So there's the hailstones, and the lightning is the fire, and the wind and the rain. It's all appearing in the space. The black clouds and the storm's blast are earthbound only, wild duck, so do not fall a prey to doubt, but get you gone upon your flight. Earthbound only, they appear out of the space, and he's already said that the mountain is not separate from the space in a way, so they return to the mountain, they don't go anywhere, so don't worry. You know, whatever appears, whatever comes up in your experience, it just goes back into your experience. You don't have to worry about it. Just keep going. Really, you are the practitioner. Just keep going. That's how I'm understanding it. You know, that's the thing with the poem, aren't you? Everyone's free to understand what they like from it. Then there's a strange, for me, it's always been very strange to me, the next verse, how it flows on, because he goes on like, the waters of the sunset lie saffron painted, beautiful, and yet unchanging is the light and dignity of the sun. So, cut the cord that joins the day and night, and stretch your wings and fly, wild duck. It's interesting, this line, isn't it? The waters of the sunset. It really works for me. It really works. The waters of the sunset. To me, it produces this sense of a lake or sea or something, and the waves, and the sunset reflected in the waves. So producing manifold images and shades and colours. It's like something quite magnificent. And then, even though actually the light that produces it hasn't changed, so that's like the image that's often used in Buddhism of how that totality of reality that can't be grasped, which is, Buddha nature or enlightenment, awakening, or whatever you want to call it, ultimate reality, it does never change because it's not in time, it's not in space. But it produces manifestation in all its wonder and beauty. And here's an image for that, like the sunset shining over the waves produces all that beauty and dazzling colours, and yet it hasn't changed. That's what it evokes for me anyway. The dignity of the sun, because he was later, when he was giving these Shambhala teachings, he would often speak of the setting sun and the eastern sun, the rising sun, and the sun is representing that upliftedness of our natural goodness and Buddha nature. So this image is right there. But then this next bit. So cut the cord that joins the day and night, and stretch your wings and fly, wild duck. So I've thought about that a lot. Cut the cord that joins the day and night. Talking about the sun setting over the waters, and then the dignity of the sun, which of course is a divide, isn't it? The sunset is, you go from day to night. So cut the cord. And I couldn't help thinking that it meant something like, when you divide the day from the night, it's through thinking, isn't it? You think that at some point there's it's a kind of linear thinking. You go through the day and then you go through the night. You go through life and then you die. Kind of there's some big cut-off point somehow. And I don't know whether this is what he means, but it suggests to me the idea of you don't make that conceptual difference between life and death. You just stay like in that totality of reality itself, which is the sun. And then there's no life and there's no birth and death. There's no life and death. It's just a conceptual interpretation of, from a certain point of view, it looks like birth and death, but it's I wonder if that's what it means. So don't make those hard conceptual sort of categories of things, but just be one with the totality, which is the Guru, and just stretch your wings and fly, wild duck. The moon's rays spread over the ocean, and heaven and earth smile. The cool and gentle breeze moves over them, and you are young and far from home. But you are young and far from home, wild duck. So stretch your wings alone and travel on the path to nowhere. So I was curious about this one, because you've got the setting sun and then you've got the moon's rays spreading over the ocean. So there is that sense that there's an ocean in this. And the heaven and earth smile. He talked a lot about heaven and earth, about joining heaven and earth, the sense of man joins heaven and earth, which are like almost like cosmic principles of upliftedness and groundedness. So it sounds very resolved, doesn't it? The moon's rays spread over the ocean, and heaven and earth smile. The cool and gentle breeze moves over them. It sounds kind of resolved and like, oh, yes. But you are young and far from home, wild duck. So it's, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit of a warning about maybe finding some kind of resolvedness and ease and thinking, yes, this is it. And he's saying, no, you are young and far from home. It may feel like more resolved, but there's still a long way to go. I don't know if that's what he's saying. It kind of wakes me up. Oh, yes. The moon's rays spread over the ocean. Heaven and earth smile. The cool and gentle breeze moves over them. Oh, yes. But you are young and far from home. Wild duck. So, stretch your wings alone and fly, and travel on the path to nowhere. So it's always that irony in the path of the Dharma, path to truth, is that you're already there, and yet it's as if you're travelling a journey, and it's a long journey and a difficult journey, and yet you're not going anywhere. There's nowhere to go because you already are integral to reality, and you're going to realise you're integral to reality, to totality. So any sense of moving anywhere is just another illusion. So there's that irony always going through the teachings. Well, that's the whole of part 1 of the song. So maybe we'll do part 2 at another time. But he does end up though by saying, the last verse is, the jungle child sings his song, sad and alone. So it's the same yogic thing. Yet weeps for nothing, and joy is in him. As he hears the flute, the peaceful wind is blowing. And even so am I, in the sky, dancing and riding the wild duck. He finishes like that. It's kind of quite a different angle on it, isn't it? So this is a picture of him that I got off the internet one time, of his, when he was in, I think it's when he was in Chogyam in Bhutan, dancing. So Khenpo Rinpoche is always telling us to sing and dance. So I thought, well, there you go. So does Trungpa Rinpoche. So I'll leave you with those thoughts and with that poem that you might want to look at. And today, this year, we're all celebrating Trungpa Rinpoche's 50th anniversary of having started teaching in this country. And Rigzin Shikpa is having a special day in Oxford. I believe it's on Dharma art, but remembering Trungpa Rinpoche. And I thought, well, we're joining in, and we can be remembering Trungpa Rinpoche. And his song is his art, isn't it? So how you can use imagery to suggest something that means something at all different levels. So at one level, his poem about the wild duck, you can identify with this young man who's just in his mid-20s, so far from home, so far from his culture and his so rich cultural heritage, and his beloved and dearly loved teachers, and even his family and friends, and in this very strange place. I mean, even for anybody in this country, going to Samyeling at that time was a pretty weird experience. So So there he is, trying to make sense of it all and continue his journey, and shortly after that he decides to take the plunge and to give up his robes and to get married. And at the same time he told me to go to India, to the nunnery in Trungpa, and I got a letter from him congratulating me on having become a nun. Actually, I hadn't become a nun. I was just living in the nunnery with a shaved head and, nun's robes on, but I hadn't actually taken ordination, I don't think, and encouraging me in that. And so there's this funny juxtaposition that I was moving into that monastic setting and he was just moving out of it. And yes, it's quite touched that he actually wrote to me, because it wasn't as if I was somebody very close. At least I didn't think of myself in that way, because I'd only just appeared on the scene, as it were. But so you could read the whole poem as being a way he's encouraging himself in that difficult situation of transition and loneliness. Or you could read something quite amazing, almost like it's a yogic experience of following the path at a very deep level in the Chogyam view of things. So as he does talk in the second part about the seasons and this summer beginning to change into the winter, and this is right on the solstice, isn't it, where we've just had that change, so it's felt very connected to the time. We had a celebration yesterday of the solstice and fire puja and by the stupa, which feels very special this time of year, the sense that the whole world experiences the same thing. We all experience this change. We've all come to this midpoint in the year where now the days are going to shorten from now on, and something quite unifying about that. But he's talking about how something about the it's almost like if you take the centre position, the centre of the turning, it's like the Eliot's still point. You can see it from that from that place. The cycle can be seen from that place, or it can be seen from the periphery where it seems to be impermanent and turning, or it can be seen from the centre where it's something quite different. So I thought that fitted the moment in terms of it being the solstice and the full moon, sort of a special time. Okay, so dedicate this punya to the enlightenment of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings realise complete and perfect awakening. May the heart's awareness awaken in the unawakened. Where it has begun to stir, may it never fade, and may it awaken fully. Chanju Semi Rinpoche Mache Banam Chejujig Cheba Nyamba Mepa Dan Kongne Kongdu Bawashu. Chanju Semi Rinpoche Mache Banam Chejujig Cheba Nyamba Mepa Dan Kongne Kongdu Bawashu. Bye bye, everybody.